You are welcome to Nationalism, and you still on the platform of your flagship program this morning on ITV. And you certainly know ITV is the best. And I am your host, Ebenezer Oyetakin, on Nationalism. And you, this is the second segment of the discourse this morning, and we are going to be taking a look at the war between Russia and Ukraine. The flood of sanctions, the impact of the sanctions, and the lessons. With me to take a look at this morning is an associate professor of international relations, University of Abuja, Comrade Adeyinka Adeniji. You are welcome to our studio, and in the characteristic and spirit of nationalism, and you.
Thank you for having me. Nationalism, it is my duty and responsibility to build this nation with all my energy, passion, and what I have in me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Prof. You're welcome.
Pleasure, man.
We have been watching the development from Russia, and Russia has been under the flood of sanctions from United States-led resistance to the invasions of Ukraine. How impactful has those sanctions been?
That's, when you look at the whole issue from February 24th, when the crisis, began, when, Putin invaded, Ukraine on reasons, two major reasons. The first reason is demilitarization and denazification of, Ukraine. And because of that, and, in international interaction, in relationship among countries of the world, there's something that is sacrosanct. It is interest. Now, each party have their interest. And if you remember, if you can go back to the memory lane, you will discover that, during the Cold War era, in the world, when the war was divided, between two poles, the East and the West, at least, capitalist West and, socialist, East, which, most of the Western country, where the, especially United States of America and, the European, ally, were members of, the capitalist, Western Bloc. And why, on the other hand, the Soviet Union, the defunct, Soviet Union, were, spearheading, the movement of, socialism, across the world. And so, and you could see that some of these things have been playing out. And that's one of the reasons why this crisis actually began in the first place. Because Ukraine was making an effort to join NATO. And Russia said never, that it will not happen, because and there was a lot of discussion going on, and the war, broke out because many, opinion differ actually, but many of the Western countries discovered that, the war was not necessary, because the debate or the dialogue was still going on, and unleashed war against Ukraine. So that's why they felt, the sanction are very necessary in order to send message to, Putin, in order to, to decapacitate him, to reduce, his, onslaught, in Ukraine. Now, this sanction, back to the basis, these sanctions, one cannot say in full, in full terms that the sanction has been so negative, on Russia, so to speak. Even though a lot of things have been affected, like the SWIFT, their financial system has been, badly affected. Inflation rate had gone up, unemployment, job cuts, many companies could not produce. So many countries even stop production because there are a lot of Western, countries that have, a factory in Russia. So many of these things, had taken place in Russia. So the sanction is felt both by Russia and the other part of the world. A lot of people, but largely, by and large, we could see that Russia has been has been affected largely by this, and area of support for Ukraine by most of the Western countries. Just 2 days ago, the Ukrainian president, Latvia president, Lithuania president, Poland president, the Baltic states, so to speak. The Baltic state, their leaders, made their way to Ukraine to visit, Zelensky, in order to show their solidarity and promise political and military support. A few days ago also, we saw Russia, Germany, giving them surface-to-air missile, in order to help boost. The Americans promised $800 million, dollars. Britain, promised 134 thereabouts, dollars to support, their military with, sophisticated and, more modern weapons to support them. So, but you see, when we look at this sanction precisely, you will see that, the sanction had greatly impacted on Russia because many of the European nations have decided to drop, because largely the energy sector, has been supported, or been, the importation of, some of the material for their energy has been from Russia, and so they cut. It was a serious cut. In fact, United States of America.
Just yesterday, let me come in. Just yesterday, Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson says that even from February 24th till that yesterday, that United States import increased cheap fuel, liquid fuel from Russia, that U.S. appear to be selfishly deceiving the European Union. What's your take on this?
And that's, I made a statement that in interaction among states, in international politics, in international relations, there's something that is sacrosanct: interest. Every state is, there's a theory, of the Morgenthau, a theory. He said, look, the world is laced with countries that have selfish interests. Selfish interests in the sense that every country will do only what is to his own, benefit, that will benefit him. So, and what we see is that that could be false accusation anyway. It could be false accusation because you can see there's always rivalry between Russia, between U.S., United States of America, and
But they have intelligence link.
I know.
Then also, talking about impact of the sanction, is this sanction really affecting Russia much more as it's affecting European Union nations that largely depended on Russian energy to the tune of 40%?
I mentioned that.
Okay.
Most of the European nations largely depend on the source of energy.
And there's no automatic replacement.
No. In fact, you could see Boris. Boris was in Saudi Arabia. They are turning to Nigeria now. Are you aware of that? They are turning to Nigeria.
They are welcome.
They are turning to Nigeria they are making
You have said it's about interest, so we should galvanize our own interest.
So you see, the sanction on Russia is both positive and negative, actually. The positive aspect of it is that so many of the countries are getting it. India, for example, India gets crude oil cheaper
from Russia, and they insisted that we will keep on buying.
Increase it. Okay, increase their purchase of. They can buy it and store it till crisis time. They can buy it and store it now that it's cheap. And so, but you see, also you could see that the sanction has actually helped the price of crude oil.
Okay, yes, of course, yes.
Before the crisis, crude oil was 70, in the neighborhood of 70.
And it's now above 100.
It's about 115, 120, fluctuating within that range.
Okay.
And so you could see that. But you see, when you look at it, it has a lot of impact on Russia also, because that's a major focus. Russia is just looking for, because you see, no nation can survive on all its own.
Okay.
Now, there is what we call economic interdependency.
Yes.
There's comparative advantage. There's the capacity that you have that others don't have. And so that's, honestly speaking, in order to get, payment from for importation and exportation,
Yes.
you must be the foreign reserve, must be viable.
Okay.
It helps, and the IMF, the World Bank, they have a lot to do with that. And so, if you notice, there was sanction on the CBN, on the Central Bank of Russia,
Okay.
and that sanction had affected, Russia from, that was why Russia changed it. For they look, they're going to get from ruble that everything will be paid through ruble, that dollar, and it was a reaction to, the sanction that was measured out to them, through that, payment. So, and that was why they came up with the fact that, look, every payment that will be done will be, every of the business, external business, of Russia will now be transacted
In rubles.
in rubles.
And immediately rubles jump up.
Rumble came a little, but you see, it affected the rate of their currency. The exchange rate has been weakened, during the sanction. Because before sanction, it was fairly okay.
But it is increasing since he decreed, since he signed that decree.
It's getting value gradually.
Yeah.
It's getting value gradually. So now the sanction, the effect of this sanction, is still being observed to see. You can't fully say that, oh, this has badly affected Russia, because Russia is still, now as of this morning, Russia still insisted. I mean, Putin insisted that until his aim is achieved, he will continue. So, and the essence of this sanction was to economically weaken them so they won't be able to feed those at the war fronts. So
About 2 weeks ago, in the United States of America, some Fox News reporters and CNN, they confronted President Joe Biden, and they asked him, why is the prices of commodities and every other thing skyrocketing in the United States, particularly gasoline? And he said, it is Russia. Is it actually affecting Russia much more as it is affecting everybody? Then again, let us say China is in rivalry with United States. Mexico is not in rivalry with United States. There was also a vivid report that United States citizens were pouring out of the border into Mexico to buy cheap gasoline. And because of that, the government of Mexico have to suspend subsidy, fuel subsidy, in all the states that bordered United States. Impact of the sanctions. So, is sanction really the way to go? Is it beneficial, or it is going to affect the entire world negatively?
The sanction.
Yes.
To be honest with you.
Yes.
It's affecting everyone.
Okay.
Don't forget, wheat, production of wheat. Russia and Ukraine are the highest producer of wheat.
United Nations Organization yesterday said over 36 states depends on Russia for their wheat. So 36 countries, United Nations.
Now, you see, wheat is largely produced by both Ukraine and Russia. So, now, to be honest, you see, this sanction affects every countries of the world. Have you noticed the price of bread in Nigeria? It has changed by 15 around 100 naira. Check.
Okay.
Please check. Maybe you've not bought bread recently. Check it. Now, so if you see that the United States of America is feeling the pain, all the European countries are feeling the pain. In fact, Germany, the Germany president, wanted to visit Ukraine alongside Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So they wanted to visit, and one of the ambassador of Germany, of Ukraine, quietly told him that, look, you cannot visit, you are not welcome in our country. Why do you think they said so? They said so because Germany have refused to completely follow through the sanction that was measured out. So they were still buying some things from them. They believe in trade relationship. They were already thinking of, the current president was already thinking of, visiting, going back to the former era of, Eastern, when we have Eastern Europe, and Russia, in alliance. They were together. So there was, because of that. So many of these European countries cannot do without, they are dependent for their energy through Russia. So it's affecting everyone. United States of America, the inflation rate has increased because of this challenge. And Another thing was that about 2 weeks ago, Joe Biden made a statement that they were releasing some million barrels of oil, of petrol to European countries. And you know, of course, that will automatically affect the domestic, front. You see, most of the time, sometimes when we make some foreign policy, some foreign policy, arrangement, it has negative effects on the domestic, environment or domestic front. On many occasions.
Now, talking about sanctions, United States seems to be the only country that is making use of instrumentality of sanctions to intimidate nations in the world. And they carry along European unions, and many people, many opinion molder thinks European Union are just a vassal states of United States. Now, talking about sanctions, the Chinese government says sanctions has never resolved any issues and has never deterred any prospect of war or things of that nature. Now, taking a look at Islamic Republic of Iran, under comprehensive sanctions from United States for going to 5 decades, that country today is the most independent country technologically, the most independent countries in defense capabilities, the most independent countries in economy. Even when COVID-19 came and ravaged the world, they refused to import COVID-19 vaccines from abroad. They decided to manufacture their own so that their citizens will not be poisoned. Yeah. Has sanctions actually worked? If sanctions cannot work against Iran, what makes one to believe that it can work on Russia?
If you look at sanctions, to some extent,
yes,
it works. And to a larger extent, it's make a nation to say a wise nation, a nation with visionary leaders. It helps them to see, another way out.
Okay.
Because survival is the first instinct of any human being, or any nation, so to speak. Now, when you look at this, one of the things I've been, ruminating over is that if Russia put through this sanction and achieve its goal, it will demystify the almighty, dependence on the other countries to survive. So what this will do is that it will make Russia to come out stronger if it's put through. And the way Russia is going, Russia has been looking for new frontier, new friends, new relations across the world.
Of course,
except for now.
This, what do they call this organization? It's an economic bloc too. That is Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Russia,
yes.
China
yes,
has been fully in support of Russia. In fact, China
and India is not moving away too. And they are all members of BRICS.
Yes.
They seem to have been preparing for this more than 20 years.
Let me tell you one secret. Is that countries look for advantage.
Okay.
To make themselves stronger.
Okay.
During the Second World War, US didn't come into the war immediately. US came later. All those time, US was standing aloof. US was busy developing, strengthening our economy. Until when his, warship was bombed by Japan in Pearl Harbor in December 7, 1941, thereabout. And also, when you look at this, it's an advantage, it's an opportunity for Russia, for China to dip it from 2014. From 2014, that Russia invaded, the first time they invaded, Crimea, Ukraine through Crimea. You notice that they've started sanctioning them. And so because of that, Russia has turned to China. And between that time and now, the trade relation between China and Russia has grown to $145 billion. $145 billion. It has grown to that extent. So it has given an opportunity to look at the different direction in order to survive in case. And so this sanction to an extent, it works for some time. And, you know, as you look for that alternative to the previous, you know, opportunity, and when that alternative is discovered, it helps the nation to be stronger and better. It's essential, you know, to a wise, you know, leader, a wise country. I think it will be a positive idea. It may be negative initially, but as time goes on, you know, you'll be able to find a way out of some of this kind of, you know.
Only yesterday, the president of Russia, speaking to some of his citizens, was saying that no nation in the world can take Russia for granted, because in area land we are the largest in the world. And he said, and many nations depends on us for their importations of grains.
Yeah.
He didn't even talk about crude oil.
No.
He said, less crude. He said, and now what we are trying to do is to create a balanced world order. He said, it is necessary we go this way. And the rest of it. And his people seems to be supporting him. Then one begins to wonder. He even said that the BRICS should now create their own SWIFT payment mechanism and the rest of it. If he pulled through all of this, and it seems China, because population matters in world market, China, India, and all those other countries that are part of SCO, that is Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is an economic bloc, all of this put together. He said, apart from all of these notable friends that are visible, he said we have silent friends, numbers of countries that are silent. He was confidently saying this. Then we say, if that is the case, and you know many nations in the world also depends on them for armament, how impactful can sanction be against such a giant nation?
But that's just the truth. There are a lot of quiet and silent admirers of Russia, and they have quite a relationship, you know, in terms of trade, in terms of, you know, armament, in terms of, you know, military hardware and all the likes of it. You know, if you look at the Nigerian Civil War between 1967 and 1970, you notice that the West refused to supply arms that was fully paid for by the federal government of Nigeria, until Nigeria turned to Russia.
Soviet Union, yes.
It was Soviet Union that actually helped out. And that was where they got the like of, you know, these MIG, Kalashnikov, the line of men that it was used, you know, to prosecute the war at the time. And so you see, a lot of countries actually weary of the domination, the hegemony, you know, of the Western country. A lot of countries are weary of it. And so they are looking for a way. And you know, Russia, in terms of international relations on the larger scale, on the world scale, you know that Russia does not, you know, so to speak, you know, believe, in quotes anyway, believe in absolute exploitation like West. You know, for Russia
they believe in relationship rather than hegemony.
Equal partnership. Now, you see, when
he repeated it yesterday.
Russia reacts only to this kind of thing, because, to be honest with you, NATO, your enemy, you have enemy, and your enemy is trying to relocate to your immediate neighborhood. Will you fold your hands until you relocate to that place? If you allow him, you're in trouble. And that was Russia is fighting for. Because Ukraine agreed to join NATO. And Russia said, you can't join NATO. It's a threat to our security. Stay on your own, and we'll be friends. After all, the Ukrainian, the USSR, the leaders of USSR largely were from Ukraine. The origin of Russia is from Ukraine. They have a lot of common history. There are a lot of ethnic Russians that are living, that are citizens of Ukraine. So they have a lot of things in common. And so when you look at this, you will discover that Russia has a lot of, you know, quiet people that, because of the kind of international politics they pursue. Russia hardly sanctioned country. Russia, you know, they don't believe in exploitation. So
the Western media, even some nations' media that are influenced by Western media, makes people to think that President Putin is a mindless dictator, unreasonable leader, and the rest of it. Yet the internal, what do you call it, popularity rating of Putin has never gone below 60%. Even in this state of war, it has risen to almost about 75 and the rest of it. 4 days ago, in the street of Frankfurt in Germany, Russians were protesting and they're saying that the European Union were discriminating against them because their country is fighting a war, but that they stand firm with their leader. Those who are in the ones in Europe, in thousands and the rest of it. Now, all this put together, are this not just misinformation and contrived reality to deceive the world from the reality?
Well, to my own opinion. Now, if you look at this, China is a kind of authoritarian society. That the media is 100% controlled.
Okay.
The economy is unfree. It's, you know, if it's, you know, when you have over controlled society,
but
the media is not free.
Oh.
You know, there are a lot of laws that were made now.
Okay, but Prince Tony Momo, Prince Tony Momo, yes, also told me that the media in United States is the most controlled media. That there are things you never, and he is in a position to know, because you know he is a journalist par excellence.
That I know, but
and the rest of it.
So
what do we?
It's to an extent.
What do we say?
Not as absolute. Not as absolute. Even in Nigeria.
Control is control.
Even in Nigeria, are media not being controlled? No, you must have regulatory measure.
No, not regulatory measure. There are things you should never report or talk about.
Yes.
Yes.
To the external world.
And the rest of it.
To the external world. It is. You know, that's normal. You know, the West, if you look at, and that's why, if you notice during...
for example, killings are going on Yemen. They don't report it.
Because there's no interest. I told you there is interest.
Killings are going on everywhere, or that they don't interest it.
I told you interest.
So
interest.
that
the Western country have a lot of interest in Ukraine. Ukraine is the theater of war because of the interest. Russia have interest in Ukraine. The Western country have interest in Ukraine. So Ukraine is at the center.
Do the world actually desire peace? Do they know how to manage peace? As a professor of international relations, why I ask that question is that is more arms, pouring more arms into Ukraine the way to achieve peace easily?
It's a big, you know, now, let me just tell you something now. I know we are going to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know there is a danger looming.
Tell me.
The danger that is looming is that, you know, Putin has made up his mind. He will not stop. By his nature. If care is not taken, Putin may use nuclear weapon. It's either, because Russia believe in Russia, Putin believe in Russia. It's either, for us, we are fighting for survival. It's either we live or nobody live in the world. That's a serious issue.
He made that statement once. He said, what is the need of a world without Russia?
So it's either we live in this world together or the world does not exist any longer. It's a big danger that is looming. And that's why you see the West is being careful, pulling back, you know, not to do direct confrontation, but now they've been pumping weapons not too long ago. The anti-air, you know, missile was donated, you know, that was used during during the years by this country. What was his name?
Czechoslovakia.
Is it Chesney? Chesney or something. So donated it to Ukraine. You know, US just promised $800 million, you know, dollars, you know, weapon to support Ukraine. So now the issue is that even with all those supplies,
where is the place of United Nations in all of this?
You know, United Nations is the control. Russia is a member of the P5. US, Britain, China, and France. So these are the people at the center. Russia, China, they are together. So who take decision? And that's why they are the ones that have capacity to veto. They are not, so is it Nigeria that will go be a member, just a member, a floor member? Is it Nigeria that will go and say, look, the only thing that could be done, Guterres has been going around, let us maintain peace, and that is not the way to go. The way to go is call these people together and say, look, what is the interest? Now those countries that are pushing for NATO, to be honest with you, it will be difficult for NATO to have Ukraine as member, of their alliance. And so the way to go is, look, suspend the ambition of joining NATO. And Russia, hold on. So, you see, what they need to do is, there are a lot of undertone. There are a lot of things that are going on that many parts of the world don't understand. Even though there's propaganda going on, some of those things are not mentioned in the propaganda by either the West or the East and the Russia itself. And so the challenge is that there are a lot of things that are not being said. There are a lot of information that are not going on, that are going under.
We discovered that Nigeria is one of those countries that are importing massively wheat from Russia.
Yeah.
So, that being that, what lessons do all of these conflicts? The other time, COVID-19 came and shut the world door against us. We thank God that Buhari had made Nigeria rice sufficient. If it were when we were importing 95% of our rice consumption, we knew what that would have meant for our nation. Is it that our soil is not arable enough to farm wheat and things of that nature? What lessons can we learn from all of these sanctions? Because today, another thing about the sanction is that Russia is having foreign reserve of over 600 billion, and almost about 300 billion has been yanked away by this thing. Yeah. What do nations need to do? A nation like Nigeria, which is a pivoter, what do they call it in diplomatic parlance? A pivot, an essential pivot like Nigeria. What should we be doing? What should we learn from all of this about foreign reserve, all in one currency, and all of that? What should we learn from all of this?
There was a process that was started long ago by doing having an agreement with China to have they call it currency swap.
Yes, so we trade with our currency.
We trade with yuan, our RMD, naira, directly, instead of going to dollar, from dollar to RMD. Now, when you look at this, you will discover that if we will make full advantage of this sanction or some of these things, is to look inward. The lesson to learn, especially in Nigeria, is to look inward. And if you can make it in rice, to be honest, I enjoy my local rice more than foreign rice now. It's sweeter, more tasty.
Since 2016, I have never tasted foreign rice.
If you dash me, I will give it out. Because I enjoy it. Tasteful, and so, but what we need to do, we also look inward. And so, to do that, we need to take a drastic measure to tame this insecurity that is all over Nigeria now. And where those insecurity are stronger are the places where they produce, and the farm settlements. And so people can no longer go to farm. You can see, if you look at the population of the city center in Abuja, you discover that Abuja, Federal Capital Territory, you discover that it has gone up. Why? Because of this insecurity. People feel more secure. But some people have house in Buhari and have another one in Kaduna. When it's hot, they run to Buhari. when they notice, is anything going? Is it okay there? So what we need to do is, if we can create an enabling environment by having good security, arrangement in the country, and I can go to anywhere and see. For some of us like farming. Mm-hmm. Farming, that's where money lies. There's a lot of money in farming, in agriculture. So what we need to do is that when there's an enabling environment, you see several people will go there, because you can make fortune from agriculture. In fact, it's one of the things that government allow civil servants to do. It's farming, only farming, that you can do as a civil servant. And so what I feel is that what we need to do is to look inward and do the same magic that we did in the rice production to other crop production. And apart from that, Now, we need to look inward also in terms of how do we diversify? How do we be self-reliant? So when we are self-reliant, it will reduce this over-reliance, over-dependence on the world. You see, what just started, if you go to the market, they say, oh, don't you know there's war in Ukraine? Between Ukraine and Russia. Why? What is that? What are business with that? They say, see this now. We cannot import this, so we have to smuggle this. So you could see some of those things. We need to, we need to learn a lesson from this.
You know, somebody said that currency of a nation are much more an instrument of national security than the instrument of trade that we are perceiving it to be, and the rest of it. But it seems that as in Nigeria, we have not imbibed that. For example, Russia now tied their currency to gold. Yeah. And say, if you want to buy our crude oil, pay us in this thing. Can Nigeria do that kind of a thing? Because we have so much gold, and we can even create bank of gold because we have it under our ground and the rest of it. Can we tie our currency to that and say, if you want to pay us and the rest of it, knowing that no permanent enemy, no permanent friend.
It's interesting.
So,
the thing is, Nigeria, we need to be serious. If the day Nigeria becomes serious, Nigeria will become a force to reckon with across the world. Now, if you look through literature, if you look through the reality on ground in Nigeria, there's virtually no solid mineral that is not present in this nation. Apart from gold. Nigeria has a lot of, sometimes it baffles one that why will a son of a king be living in abject poverty when his father has a lot of wealth in his quiver? So when you look at this so clearly, the challenge we have in Nigeria so far and over the year has been the paucity of leadership that are visionary leader. Look at Ghana here. Ghana, in the next 5 years, Ghana will become something that we all will be surprised about. Ghana have gotten it right to an extent now. Now look at this country, Rwanda, that just came out of war. When did they come out of this war? And when you look at Rwanda today is making, even though they live on AIDS and things like that, because that's the only option they have. But Rwanda is a place to go.
So if you have one single word to advise the government, what will that word be?
The government of Nigeria.
Yes, we are rounding up.
All right.
Just one single sentence.
And what I would say to the government of Nigeria is that Nigeria government should find a way of taking our attention away from believing that we can only survive when we depend on the external world.
We should move away from thinking that developmental aids and all of that comes with it, it is only our survival. And we thank God that we have a leadership that have taught us differently. Recently, even in faraway Uganda, the rice pyramid in Nigeria was a point of discourse at an international conference of universities. So, let us do the right thing. Let us innovate technology, stand on our own feet, because there is no place for the weak and the fragmented in the world. No. That is how we are rounding it up today on Nationalism and You. But don't change the channel, because here on ITV, we keep you busy till night comes and till another morning comes. I remain your host, Ebenezer Oyetakin, till next week, Thursday. Keep the date with us.